Welcome, everyone. We're going to give folks a minute to join, but welcome for today's Raise webinar. Hope your weather is nice and you're not getting stormed on. Hello. We'll get started in just a moment.
You got it.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone. I'm Jiz Badger, and I am the director of the Raise Center. Raise is a project of SPAN funded by the Rehab Service Administration. We support parent centers, families, and youth with disabilities in and through transition to adulthood. Today's webinar, we're really looking at transition discoveries, which I've had the fortunate opportunity to know about for many years, but this is a wonderful program for young adults, youth who are transitioning into adulthood. And so I'm going to turn it over to Miriam to give some of the accessibility information.
Yes, next slide.
You got it.
All right, thank you. My name is Miriam Alison. I am part of the Race Center staff. And so we are using a caption provided by Zoom. If you need captioning, which I think is wonderful, you just click on the CC over there and you will have the closed captioning. We also have interpretación al español. We have an interpreter to Spanish. Para acceder al canal en español, van a ver en la banda o cinta negra un globo que indica Interpretation. Haga clic allí, luego seleccionan donde dice Español y oprimen, donde dice Mute Original Audio. Esto último filtra completamente la señal en inglés para que puedan escuchar con claridad a nuestro intérprete Sergio Castro. We also have American Sign Language. We have Tina right here. And we highlight her so you can see her all the time. But if you want to pin her, you hover over the three dots and you can pin the interpretation, American Sign Language, from the menu. And next slide. So.
Okay, and we're now turning it over to our guests. So welcome, and we're so excited to have you all.
Okay, well, I'm going to get started. My name is Dr. Joan Kester. I'm with George Washington University, and I've been the founder and president of the nonprofit Transition Discoveries. The exciting thing, as Josie said, is we've been really connected to families and youth from the very start of the project, which is about 10 years ago. We really believe that for anything to really change, you have to be at the grassroots with families and also with youth for them to be focused on their strengths and not necessarily the needs of the system. We believe that relationships are the foundation of all collaboration. Again, we're not going off any kind of a checklist to say we fit within a certain system, but we have been very fortunate to develop a lot of the tools and resources we're going to share with you. I would say at this point, over 250 youth, families, and community members have been involved in the development of them. So again, it's not tied to any particular system, but we're here really to focus on changing systems based on the power of youth and families in our relationships. Okay, so as I mentioned, my name's Joan Kester. The team calls me Super Boss, just because I'm not sure where that came from, but my email address is there, she, her, and I use the terms thought leader, network weaver, community builder, co-creator. I love changing systems. I love creativity and innovation. I would say I'm an entrepreneur. I have a pretty youthful spirit. I'm an advocate and a mentor. I'll pass this over to Erin Black.
Awesome. Thanks, Dr. Kester. Hello everyone. I do apologize. I'm sharing my screen right now, so I cannot see you all. But hopefully you can see and hear me all right. My name is Erin Black. I'm sure I've gotten to work and meet some of you on this call, but surely not everyone. So for those of you who I haven't had the pleasure to know, my name is Erin. I am 22 years old. I always feel like this is a perfect space and place to share my age. I know most of the time it's kind of like a cultural no-no to ask someone how old they are, but me being 22 is something that I think is really important in terms of my job and what I do as both a person with a disability, as a self-advocate, as a youth engagement expert, and someone who loves being in spaces where we're trying to prioritize how to make space at the table where decisions are being made for young people, and in this case, specifically young people with disabilities. And I am very lucky I've come onto the Transition Discoveries team and been able to do a very vast variety of things, which has been excellent for me because I'm here seeking experience more than I am anything. So I've been able to help bring storytelling to life for young people using Transition Discoveries and our model. And it's awesome. I'm just really grateful to be here. And I look forward to over the next couple of decades, getting to know the transition community even better than I have just these past 2 years since I graduated college. So thanks for having me, and I'll pass it over to you, Ellen.
Unmute.
Is Ellen muted? I can't see you guys. This is fun. This is like a charades game.
How's that? Okay.
There we go, Ellen.
Oh,
You're on.
forgive me. My name is Ellen Colston. I am also a graduate of George Washington University, the Secondary Transition Program. But the impetus for me going to that program is that I'm a mom of 2 children with disabilities. And I am also a veteran of the PTI system, where I served on the board in my own state, in the state of Delaware, for over 6.5 years. So I'm thrilled to be part of this meeting today. I was an advocate. I went through partners in policy making. I thought I kind of knew things, and then I went to conferences, and then I had a transition plan myself, and I'll share more about that as I go on. I want to say that transition planning is the best part of IDEA, because we all go through transition multiple times. The last thing is that I learned about student-led IEP meetings, and I am just an enthusiast for that it's part of our roles as capacity builder as parents, that we can do this too with our children. So I joined Transition Discoveries this past summer. It's really a mindset. It's based on growth. It's based on what our kids can do, and it's based on stretching their abilities. And once we do that, it's amazing what they can accomplish. So I'm delighted to be here today. Thank you.
Thanks, Ellen. I'll pick it up again. This is Joan Kester. So we believe in collecting people that are like-minded, and we're going to talk about these 4 pillars today, which is what binds us together. We don't really believe in a top-down model. We're much more into a grassroots effort where, for those on the call, each and every one of us has a level of connections and passion of what we do. And really, Transition Discoveries is just a way to build a network and connect people. We really do believe in fostering co-creation. So we're going to be doing some work in the future in Pennsylvania. We hope to expand that and work with the parent centers. We don't necessarily see ourselves as the experts, but we do see that we do meaning making together with youth and families. And while we have research, evidence-based practices incorporated in it, we also don't just go on what's in the books. We also go into the field and connect with people to find out what life really is like in that transition and to try to capture stories. So let's move to the next slide.
Got it.
Our strategic partnerships We're cultivating them. We started as a nonprofit, I would say last summer. We have come out of a 10-year grant with the Developmental Disabilities Council in Pennsylvania. We have a systems change guide, which we'd be happy to share with you, that talks about all the ways we've engaged youth and families and communities. It's a lot of lessons learned. At this point, we have a more of a systematic approach to systems change, where schools and youth, families, and stakeholders are actually giving data back to the schools to say, this is going well, this isn't going too well, how can we collectively improve? So we're in over 50 schools already in that model, and we feel like our home is mostly with families and with youth. So we'd love to talk with you today and share some of our resources and see if we could partner in the future. Okay.
Awesome.
Yep, I already mentioned this. I'm ahead of myself. That's a good thing because we're on a time limit. So let's go ahead and move to the fact that we're going to talk today about what makes us unique compared to other organizations. So we have 4 main pillars: person-driven planning, person always at the center of everything that's done; the importance of adult allyship and relationships; the essential piece of youth voice, which is probably should be up on the top; and the fact that we do believe in data to drive decision making and evidence-based practices. So with that, I'm going to move over and pass things on to our other team members.
Okay, so that's me, person-driven planning. I'm glad I messed up saying that, because when I first became an advocate for my son, I have 2 sons. One was an injury at birth, and another son had a truck accident 8 days into his senior year of high school. So I've been involved in advocacy 20 years. And I went through the Partners in Policymaking program, and it was really important that we learn person-centered planning, where the person is the center of the meeting, the person invites people to come in, but again, it's somebody else leading it. Part of this transition discoveries is presumed competence, that the person is competent and can be at the table and can make decisions for themselves for a life they are excited to live. Because transition planning under IDEA is the mission statement of We are supposed to prepare students for further education, future employment, independent living. That's no different than students without disabilities. In special education, we call it special transition planning. But kids without disabilities, they go to college, well, further education. Kids without disabilities go into the work world, future employment. Kids without disabilities have independent living, or cutting them off the gravy train. But the thing is that we need to have that mindset of presumed competence and shifting to a growth mindset. Like, I'm very influenced by Carol Dweck of The Power of Yet. So let me go what's on the screen. Person-driven planning, if you can go back, Erin, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. There you go.
Is knowing each person, thinking about their future is important for their plans, and accurately reflect the student's personality, interests, goals, and experiences. Every transition plan is personalized with vision boards. I really like this, and so do the students. The feedback we've gotten with the transition assessments, it's all compiled within a personal positive vocational profile. I am a zealot for student-driven IEP meetings, and the data that you can get from students working on this website, this resource, they can bring right into their IEP meetings. The transition assessments, they can be brought right into their IEP meetings. But to me, it's just liberating when we switch from person-centered to person-driven. And everything is from experiences and exposures stretching those abilities, and then sitting with the students or children afterwards and get those self-reflections. What went well? What would you do differently? Just like our kids go out and, like go soccer practice, or they go to music practice or pray practice, there should be practice for developing, self-advocacy skills and this person-driven planning. I mean, we don't hand kids the keys and say, okay, go for it. We give them time and we give them practice. My exposure with transition discoveries, where I had to stretch my own abilities, is being part of the social media team, where I put out a video every week regarding a facet of our system. Again, a mindset shift. I didn't know I was stuck in a deficit thinking with my own son. I was stuck on his kryptonite. I was stuck on what he couldn't do. And then once you learn about, and transition discoveries helps build the capacity to help families shift away from what my kid can't do to what they're exceptional at. And I just needed that. The best messenger, I thought, were seeing other kids just like my son. And once he saw it too, he wanted to be it. So we both were getting built capacity for him and me, and we worked on it together. So this is one of the videos I did, a couple videos back on person-driven planning. So Erin, if you can cue it up, and then if you could share your reflections afterwards, I would love to hear from you. Thank you.
Olson from the IEP Road to Freedom. This week on Transition Discoveries, I want to talk to you more about how our system can help students prepare for their IEP meetings. Last week, I described all the transition assessments within our system. That information is compiled into the student's downloadable Discovery Journey overview. This allows every student to kick off their own IEP meeting, sharing about themselves, like job, Holland codes, career personality type, plus your students' strengths and interests. There are so many ways students can present this information in their IEP meeting. They can share a hard copy with their IEP team. They can create a poster of pictures of them in the community, which is a prerequisite for community mapping. They can create a video and show it to their IEP team, or they can create a PowerPoint with pictures so everybody can see the students where they are at their best. This is a great foundation for a strengths-based IEP. Bottom line, the more we shift positions now, when we build capacity in our youth to lead, the better they practice, the more they get experience. We are preparing them for the real world. This feature alone is why you should subscribe to transitiondiscoveries.org. Buy a deck of TD Discovery cards. Follow us on social media on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. And I'll see you next week on Transition Discoveries.
Awesome. Let me get back to the PowerPoint, Ellen, and then you can keep going.
Okay. So if you can put in the chat, what did you think about it? I mean, what do you think about shifting and helping families and students shifts? The students are already there. They want to do this. They are waiting for the adults to be okay with it. So
Ellen, this is Lauren. We have a question regarding that in the Q&A. It says, do you have resources for person-driven planning versus person-centered planning?
Or actually, you let me know if you want me to switch the slide, Ellen. I know that's the next one.
That's okay. That's okay. And Dr. Kester, I want you to jump in on this as well, that we do have the resources. The first thing I'm really sharing, though, is that mindset and exposing students on what can be. It's a sin because we have to shift that transition is just everything on a sheet of paper. It's really about building the life that they want to live, designing it. It's so funny. It's not funny, but when your child's first diagnosed, and the same thing happened to me, the first thing that comes off the table is their future. You ask about what's going to happen, and everybody's like, we'll see, we'll see. To me, this mindset of transition discoveries puts the future back on the table. The more we build, the more we expose, the more we create space for them to practice and shift out of the way, and we'll talk about that with adult allies, the better it is for our kids. So yes, check out our website. You can subscribe for a free account. The other thing I like is we have transition discovery cards that are great conversation starters. So in the car, when he really didn't want to talk all the time, but I'm like, put your device away. And I'm like, hey, what do you think about this today? And the transition discovery cards just have great prompts just to get your kids talking, exposing. Like here's one. Do you feel like you know what job you want to have? It was great because with these transition discovery assessments that are on our system, we will give you ideas on connect it with the John Holland codes that your interests and strengths are in this area. Let's do some investigation. Another thing I like in there, we have an activity where students, prepare for mock interviews, which is good, but informational interviews, who you know in the community, because again, as Dr. Kester was saying, it's all about not separating our kids from the community, but capitalizing or leveraging on the part of the community they are already in and exercising those resources. I love this one too, because this is about me. Follow a hashtag related to a cause or interest and encourage your friends and families to join you. So my personal, I do the Transition Discoveries Twitter page, but my personal Twitter page, my handle is student-led IEP. So people think I'm crazy on it, but it changed everything. Once my son did it, once he gained confidence, I hooked him. I could get him to do other things too. Was he perfect every time? No. But that's another thing I learned with transition discoveries was the dignity of risk, which is a gift. So we have one more video that I can show on person-centered driven.
Yeah, I can I included that one in the youth voice too. So if we want to keep going, I know you actually just transitioned us super nicely into the adult allyship element with the cards. If you want me to just keep
Okay.
keep
All
that
right, I can
flowing.
talk about adult allyship.
Yeah.
If I can start off, I'm sorry, and then I'll be quiet.
Absolutely.
So adult allyship, so even though I was an advocate and I was the one pulling kid, I thought I was going to pull my son and the teacher's going to pull my son through the transition process. Once we were exposed to self-determination, once we were exposed to self-awareness, once I was exposed to what I could do as a parent to build capacity, and Chris, which is a shift for me. I wasn't a special education teacher, but I had a role and I learned my role, and we can help you. Transition Discoveries has a parent section where you help, and you're an asset in your son or daughter's transition plan. But I remember this one time, somebody had asked my son to open up a meeting. And I'm looking at him and he goes, well, I just want him to read this little thing right here. And I'm like, oh my God. Like at that time, reading was very difficult with my son. And then he also had a little problem where if you gave him a microphone, not even microphone, but I called him Captain Giggles. So I'm like, oh my God, you're going to ask him to open up something. You're going to ask him to read something. And then he's going to laugh when he gets the microphone. And I was like, I could tell I was sweating. And my son was standing right in front of me and the person's asking me, directing me. And before I'm like, no, my son is like, I'll do it. And I'm like, oh my God, I thought he was going to do. So the person saw the faint on my face, and what he said to me is, I'm like, I don't know if he can do it. He goes, Mom, I know he can. And talk about that kind of galvanized my role on, I'm not leading the way. My job is to bring the resources behind my son and help him to learn that confidence that he can do it himself. Again, I come back to presumed competence. I didn't know that term as a parent, but if we give them a chance, they can do it. And if they fail along the way, failure is first attempt in learning. Give them the space to grow.
Ellen, I'm sorry, it's Lauren. I have another question that's related exactly to what you're discussing. What if you have a student who's just afraid, stressed out over everything, not to mention graduation in the future?
The youth voice is what we are a big proponent of. You got to see it to be it. I just went to this great conference, and I'm going to say it was New Jersey Transition Conference, and in the beginning, it was parents and students together and their children, and then they separated. So the parents were here, And the students were just next door, and they were going to have their own track, learning the same things. And this girl behind me she was a Barbie doll. She was hugging her mom. She was hugging. She didn't want to do it. And then she left. So then we finished, and the parents are waiting in the hallway. And I just watched that girl. She wasn't coming out of the room. She found it. She found her comfort because it is learning it from their peers. I know my son, we heard adults speak before, it just didn't make the connection until we saw it in someone like him, someone as young as him. And I'll really say that I really didn't get it until I saw it in 5 ninth graders, and they knew their strengths and they knew their interests. They knew what they needed to be successful. Another word for accommodations. So they are out there. We've got to build the capacity with them and put them out front. They can do it. Once you see it, be it, you bring it to others. So we have videos on our side, on our site, where you can see students. And in fact, let's bring up that video of Andre. This is a perfect example of a mom who knew her role, because as moms, sometimes we're fixers. We want to do it ourselves. But when it comes to transition planning, our job is to ask questions. The answer for every transition plan is standing right in front of us. Let them find it.
Ellen, I'm sorry. It's Lauren. One more time. We have an additional question from Patricia. She teaches graduate level transition, person-centered planning, and she needs references if you have any.
I can get them to her. I can't do it right now, or my email's there, so she can, you can email me.
Yeah.
Or Dr. Kester. So that's fine. There's my email, but I will give you them. That's a
know,
great
Ellen,
question. I love it. I love it because there is a difference between person-centered and person-driven. And my kid liked being in that driver's seat once he was handed the keys. So
you have to remember the website and the resources that we designed are not designed. They have the influence of higher ed, but they are not another website of educators teaching other educators. It is about behaving and changing a certain mindset and really creating resources based upon the voices of youth. So it's very different than what you're talking about. So how about if we go ahead and look at the
yeah, I was gonna, I think sharing
Yeah.
Andre's video is a great idea.
And mom is interviewing the son. Love it.
Make sure the sound is up all the way.
My youth for youth, right, Erin?
Absolutely. That's the next topic.
Hi, how are you? I'm doing pretty good. Okay, you want to introduce yourself? You said my name already, so there you go. I said your nickname. What's your name? Andre King. I work at Ray Price Mount Pocono. I am a service cashier. How did you get that job? Well, initially, I lost the previous job, and I was kind of in a rough place a bit. But I picked myself back up, and I was throwing applications on top of applications on top of applications, and what's super important is not just throwing applications in, but also calling back after a certain period of time. Okay. So then I called back a bunch of places, and they always said, "Oh, we'll put you on the list. We'll put you on the list. We'll put you on the list." And then one day I got an offer between Sheets and the car dealership, and I chose the car dealership.
Okay, so you are very articulate and you're expressing yourself well. Why don't you share a little bit about who you are in the neurodivergent world, and how has this process of finding employment and learning how to perform at work, how has that changed over the course of your experience?
Well, neurodivergently, I'm on the autistic spectrum, and I'm more on the high functioning end. And high functioning doesn't mean perfection. High functioning means that I function normally on most days, but then there are elements of life that push me a bit, which is socializing and getting to know people and being conversational, which was something that I had to learn how to be better at in order to do the job that I do now. And I had to learn that skill, and that was the most difficult part of it. Like, was talking to employers and doing callbacks and how nervous I could get. But with the right amount of practice, I was able to get it done.
So the only reason I'm going to move on is because we get back into Andre and his story here in just a second. But I think it actually transitions pretty nicely into the fact that we can't have adult allyship and relationship building. We really can't have person-driven planning nor person-centered planning if we don't have youth voice, which we'll get into the cards in a second. We can go back to that. I know, Ellen, you were gracious enough to kind of start introducing what the discovery cards are and where they came from. But I would argue that youth voice is really the part that if you're going to walk away from anything in terms of transition discoveries and the model that we practice and we preach and we really genuinely believe in, it would be the fact that youth are the people that we should be looking at right now, and youth are the people that we should be making room for in all spaces. Now, we are firm believers that storytelling is a huge part of systems change, honestly, and it's a part of any system. I honestly think that without that youth voice element, we really have nothing else. I think we always argue this pillar should just sit above everything else. I think all the other pillars sit on top of it. But with that, we have several youth in our network that we are connected to. They are the youth that have helped not only build our website, because as much as we love our website and there's literally hundreds of, I would argue, very unique tools a part of our website, that's fantastic, but that's not all of who we are. We really are these people. Our youth are probably the most vibrant and loud voice in our network, and I think that is really incredible. They drive everything that we do, and they're also just my friends. So maybe I'm a little biased, but I really enjoy them, and think that their perspective that they have to share could teach us a lot about ways to approach transition. So I'd love to just share a couple of really short clips of videos of some of the youth that we're working with. Our intern is named Julia. She creates videos every single week. Oopsie. She creates videos every single week.
My first bit of advice for life is to not being afraid to try new things and make mistakes. Sign up for that pottery class. You may not get it at first, but it takes practice. Try new foods, even if you don't think you'll like it, or you'll end up discovering your new favorite. Go to your local gym that you've been so nervous about fitting in at. Try a new activity, you might find your new favorite hobby. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Sometimes we don't try new things because we're scared of failure. But if you let mistakes happen, you can learn from them.
So really just short, awesome clips that some of the youth in our network are able to watch and really learn from. We've had amazing engagement and responses back. This is our Instagram page. It's something that has been a passion project of mine, and I believe it really does reflect some of the young people that we work with. This is one of our awesome youth, Grace. She came to us and said, I want to share some advice as a young person with a disability. So I encourage you all, at the end, we talk more about kind of connection and social media and how we've used it as a storytelling piece, as a really powerful tool to allowing those youth to step up and really get to show us exactly who they are. So with that, I did just want to share one or two other really short clips. I wish we had hours to spend with you all, but unfortunately we don't. So I'm going to just pull up a little clip of our one of our other youth in our network, Will. I'm sure some of you have gotten to work with Will in his rightful way. Oh, come on, Instagram, let's load. So we just have a really, really strong youth presence that I love the question about what about youth that hate this? I mean, I was one of those youth at one point in time. I was like, absolutely not. Do not drag me to anything. Do not make me go. I was like, Mom, these are weird. These kids are not like me. And it really wasn't until I was given the opportunity to connect to other young people who are going through really unique circumstances with their disability and lived experience that my life was forever changed. So for example, this is Will Johnson. A couple of you might know him. Yeah, get this to load. It doesn't like that I have like 10 tabs open as we're presenting. But I will say all of these links and everything is available in the presentation that you will all receive. So I do encourage you to take the time and go through our social medias and actually get to see some of these youth perspectives. So I'm not sure. Are you all seeing? I don't think it's really it's loaded on my end, but it's saying it's not loaded for you all. That's just probably true. We love technology, but I don't want to hold us up too much. So I can come back to the youth voice videos if we do have time, but I encourage you all as much as you can to go take a look at them. And then just give me a minute and we'll get back to our presentation. I'm gonna hide this panel. Oh, are you all seeing that? Give me a second. Let's regroup. Let me reshare my screen. Are you all seeing the error message that I was seeing?
Yes.
Okay, good. So you guys know I'm not making this up now. But regardless, I think youth voice in all sections of the website, as Dr. Kester was kind of sharing and will share in terms of our the importance of data for us as a group. But really there is not a section of our website that wasn't designed by youth for youth. So those things like Ellen was talking about having your initial assessment when you join Transition Discoveries as a website, those questions our youth have gone through. And as you all probably know better than anyone, youth have some of the strongest opinions, and they told us what was just not going to work for them, what wasn't them, what was absolutely not who they were. And I really appreciate that. And I think that that's one thing Transition Discoveries has prioritized by all means, is giving youth the space to really navigate their transitions and figure it out together in a community setting. So, okay, awesome. I got it to load this time. I think I just needed to give her a minute, as we all experience far too often. So give me 1 second. Let me share my screen again. Awesome. Can everybody see what I'm looking at? Incredible.
Johnson. I am a self-advocate. I am a speaker. I am a public figure. I have an intellectual disability. How and I work at the Human Development Center as an administrative coordinator. How did I get into these amazing things I'm doing in the disability community? So with that, my dad always pushed me because I wasn't this type of person that's always opening. I was afraid of how people were gonna judge me as a person with a disability. My dad always said, step out of your comfort zone. The work that I'm doing and the work is awesome. It's just, sometimes it's hard, sometimes it's easy, some days you're just feeling overwhelmed. But as a person with a disability, I hardly believe every person with a disability should have the opportunity to work, should have the opportunity to do everything they can do in the community, because we deserve the same thing. And when I say we, I'm not by myself. We are a community as one.
I wish I could like sit here and show you the whole 5-minute video if we had more time, but I think you get the point that it's really up to us to listen to young people when it comes to both their needs as well as opening up opportunities for young people to truly get involved in all that we do. I will say too, Ellen really was nice enough to kind of get us into this space of discovery cards. And I think that this, it almost is its own pillar, transition discoveries, but I would argue it falls under every single pillar that we already have. And that is meaningful relationships and actually having meaningful, authentic connection with young people in the field. I think often as a young person myself that's working in the field and has been on the other opposite end of things. I've been a student in IEP meetings. I've been a student trying to follow and lead my own transition plan. And one thing I think we hear often is like, why doesn't my student care? Why doesn't my student want to listen? And it's like, well, who do they have in their life that they feel they're actually genuinely comfortable with to talk about some of these uncomfortable things, these hard things, these things that just sometimes seem so overwhelming to us and to adults that it makes it even harder. So we decided what better way to help professionals and adults and families nonetheless connect with young people everywhere that was when the concept of discovery cards came in. And we went based off of our 9 indicators, which in a couple minutes here, Dr. Custer is going to walk you through those 9 indicators and where those came from. But these were arguably the 9 most important elements of transition based on the hundreds of people that were asked. And these cards, as Ellen kind of gave some excellent examples, these are completely free and available online, or you can order a hard copy if you're like me and you like something physical. But they follow every single category that we believe is an important element of transition. And there's a conversation starter. So there's something, maybe a guided question at the top, as well as an actual activity or an action item at the bottom. They were awesome. They were created by young people's input as well. This is exactly what young people said would be beneficial to their transition plans. So I encourage you all to take a look at these if you have some time beyond this short little lunch hour that we have together. So the cards though really do speak, I think, volumes as to who we are as professionals, young people, and family members. There hasn't really been a single person, I think, that hasn't used the cards and walked away and said, wow, like that really struck a new chord, or that really caused a new conversation to happen. Because at the end of the day, we're all just trying our best, and it's hard for young people, but it's also hard for adults to make those meaningful bridges and have that connection. So I know we're really cruising through this, but all good things to pick up on and really understand the importance of, especially coming from myself, a young person who's gone through the whole system. Youth voice is that's where it's at. It's where it lies. And we're so lucky we've been able to use our social media and beyond. We've been able to physically connect through conferences, through communities of practice, through actual relationships. We've been able to allow youth to come into our space and help us guide and really change the system, change the way that we approach transition. So I think that's a good segue, Dr. Custer, if you want to. This is definitely your element, not mine. I can talk about youth voice all day. You are so good at the data.
So I have grown up in the systems. I worked for Voc Rehab for, I'm not going to tell you how many years, but I worked for Voc Rehab much of my career before I ended up going into the ivory towers. But what makes me unique is that all of our research through the DD Council funding was something called action research. And you add the word participatory action research, and that means we trained, we had an advisory board made up of families and youth with disabilities, and then we had members across systems like education, voc rehab, mental health, intellectual. Yeah, we had that's the group that guided our work in transition discoveries. And the really great thing is I've been involved with the Pennsylvania Youth Leadership Network, which started, Josie was founding member, and that started over 20 years ago in Pennsylvania. And it follows along the lines of what we're talking about now. But we trained, and if you know Everett Deibler, I don't think he's on today, we trained youth with and without disabilities to be researchers and to code data. So youth and families, what are the things that are most important to you? What are your dreams and goals for the future with transition? What would good transition look like if it was up to you to define? Well, the quality indicators, which is stuff you're going to find on our website, we had over 500 people tell us these are the things that we want to focus on. And the number one thing that youth wanted to talk about was relationships. And when you think about IDEA and workforce innovation opportunity and youth, none of that has stuff that we're talking about. Youth voice and the importance of focusing on the relationships and building the network. So that's how we came about. So this research has happened at the George Washington University, where I'm situated. And when you go on the website, and we'll show the resources, under each one of these topics, there's a total of 54 practices, things that you can do to promote success for youth. Again, they're like when we go across what the National TA Center says, our stuff aligns. But where did we get it? We got it from real people in the grassroots level. So if you go to the next page, and I'm going to take you on a quick visit to the website. I think there were questions and such, but if you click on the resources link, basically you can go and pick a topic. And if you want to pick relationships, let's just do that. Or relationships. Let's pick sense of belonging and unclick that. And then we'll go down further and say, what do we want? So we have 60 lesson plans that were developed by our GW master students. We have tip sheets, we have videos. So if you just do a search for all that, Erin, and we have Spanish and English, you'll see we have videos, 2 to 3 minute videos that were done. Actually, Everett Deibler was part of a project at that time. He coordinated the videos. And then the lesson plans, you can, as a family member, even break that apart and say, this is an activity that we could do. So you can use the discovery board where you set up your profile of what you're good at, what your interests are, and then you can go into learning journeys, play games, such like that. And then you can go into this area. And as a family member, you may be looking for a very specific resource, right? So let's say, something's come up, just click on employment, for example, Erin. Those are the practices. So if you want to look at career exploration, you could just pick that. What does unpaid work experience look like? And it's meant to ramp youth and families into transition with the assumption that maybe nothing's happening in the schools, nothing's happening with voc rehab. So they can go right in there and you can go right in there and get what you need. And then if we just go and look at the infographic, I want to show that real quickly.
Yeah.
We
Sure.
started, and this was such a big hit. So if you think, oh my gosh, there's way too much in here for me to think about, you can just go in and pick a topic on the resource page. But we created this infographic guide, which takes each topic. It's directly from the data. And youth were involved in creating this in families. But for example, career exploration, based on qualitative data, that means what people said to us. We said on the next page, what it is, what the characteristics are, what are the outcomes, and stories. A lot of this is incorporated on the website, but if you want a starting point, the infographic guide is up on the front page as well. It's in English and in Spanish. So with that, I'm going to pass it back to Erin. I don't know if there are things on the website. We have about 10 minutes left. We've been breezing through. We didn't want to spend the time on the website. We figured that's pretty self-explanatory, but I think Erin might want to show you around a little bit.
Yeah, I know. And I want to make sure. Oh, look at that. I'm already logged in. Thanks. I know. I want to make sure too we leave some time for like questions and just like conversation, because normally our presentations, I feel like we ask so many questions to the point that the audience is like, okay, we get it. But I feel like just because we only had an hour, we kind of breezed through some things. But this is, I feel like, the website, as much as it's not all of who we are, we really don't label ourselves a resource. We label ourselves more as of a network of people. I will say though, our website is a really genuinely cool, authentic way to kind of connect and actually take something away into your families, into your communities, into your practice. So these modules, there's 9 of them that go based off those 9 indicators that Dr. Custer just explained where they came from. These are actual modules where someone can come in, a young person can come in, and there's going to be a lot of steps and stages and engagement. We have a gaming center. So if I was focused on disability awareness that day, maybe that's the module I'd want to go in. There's going to be a video of someone unpacking it. There's not only a video, there's an actual like real life story submitted by a young person with their experience with that topic. There's game time. They can go and play games and do all sorts of engaging, more fun, youthful things that make this feel less like school and more like an actual opportunity to kind of navigate. As well as ways for themselves to download things, take things with them, take things to their parents, they take things with them to their coordinators or teachers or whoever's in their life, as well as reflect on it. And we've worked really hard to make sure that all of these things are as inclusive as possible for a wide variety of age, experience, and need. For example, they don't have to type in an answer. They could record a video or upload an image doing so. It's things like that that really allow for this to be a little bit more of an inclusive process for young people, hopefully not requiring every single one of our young people to require an adult to sit down with them. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. Maybe this is something they like to do on their own. So those are our modules, and we have lots of opportunities for it to be more structured or less structured. I know sometimes I come in here just and fill things out myself as good reflections, and there's all sorts of youthful elements. I got 169 coins. Like it's just
Want to go to the store just for
yeah.
So we
Yes.
incorporated this. I want to do a shout out to Employment Resources Incorporated, ERI. They have been the web designer and they have just embraced our pillars and been very interested. We've had young people involved in every dimension of this. So we
Yes.
believe these things and we do these things, and we believe we can teach other people how to do it too.
Right.
So
And at the
yeah.
very least, have your young person or yourself. I think that's another thing I feel like we really stand by is that transition is not just something we go through when
No.
we're in high school. It's an ever-changing and evolving thing, which is why we have all these available. It's different than maybe a personality test in the fact that it asks really about the nitty-gritty. It gets through the transition message without it being too overwhelming or something that youth are not going to want to fill out. So we have ONET embedded in here, which is awesome. So students can come and learn about what kind of employee they would be. We would be here for hours showing you all of this stuff. I mean, it took many years to really come up with all of this. So I just encourage everyone, as a young person that is sick of really boring, unengaged transitional resources, I think we're really proud of what we've come up with the site. So I encourage you all just to take a couple minutes and go look at it yourself. Oops, I got a little out of line, but that's the website, transitiondiscoveries.org. So we always say sometimes I'm like, I feel like we're selling a website, but we genuinely, I think it really reflects who we are. And then, yeah, we just to close and maybe answer some questions if you want to take it away, Dr. Kester.
Sure. And Ellen, feel free to come back to us. Feel like I see you turned your camera off, but feel free to come back. We are scheduled to have community
Community
there
Hub.
we go. Community Hub calls once a month for anybody that's really interested in adopting the model, and especially around person-driven planning, being adult allies, youth voice, and evidence-based practices. There'll be, we really want to build a sense of community for people who have those same shared values. There's no obligation whatsoever. I think we have a limit of 100 seats per month, but we sure hope you join us. This is something new that we're doing. That way, if you start exploring and you start looking at the website and you think, oh gosh, I can't find X, Y, or Z. Or you say, I really want to talk to other people that have the same values and belief systems. I would really love to have you all join us in those conversations. This has been a life mission for me. I didn't really mention to the fact that Josie knew my husband Marty very well. He and I had been adult allies with Pennsylvania Youth Leadership Network for many, many years, and he had a physical disability, but despite his life experiences, he ended up second in charge at OBR in Pennsylvania after starting as a client when they told him that we don't hire clients back in the day. So anyway, just to kind of contextualize the fact that I'm just not an academician. I am an advocate by nature, and this is stuff that we truly believe in and we really want to promote.
Yeah. And if
We have
you're,
two questions
yeah,
in the
absolutely.
chat. Okay. The first was, what is suggestions you have for students who do not want the label of a person with a disability? And the second was asking if they can sign their daughter up for the youth section.
Yes. I'd love to just take a stab at the question about identifying as a person with a disability. That alone took me years living with a physical disability. In fact, the same small world, but the same disability that Marty Kester had, which is just a small world. But I will say that I think alone is something that comes with the person-driven planning model. And I'm not sure you're ever going to be able to tell a student or a young person or people in general, no matter of their age or who they are, you're never going to be able to define that for someone else. However, what you can do is provide them communities and resources and enough of a support network that maybe that might kind of happen organically and authentically. We also, I will add at Transition Discoveries, serve all young people. We are not just here for one particular mold, or we're not just here to adhere to people with disabilities. Now, obviously, I think that that's where typically our resources are most used and most needed. But young people in general need this. I send it to my friends, none of which who have disability experience. And disability is just a section of their identity that I think some of this might help make them grow more comfortable with. But I would argue they do not need to fall into a box. You don't need to put them in a box. That will completely happen on their own by connecting with other young people. It really wasn't
Yes.
until I was in a space with young people with disabilities that
And
happened.
yeah, and working with colleagues, this site is appropriate for anybody. You
Yeah.
know, anybody going through a transition period who wants to do self-exploration,
Yes.
wants to explore opportunities. Now, some are specific to disability, but many of them are things like, I wish I would have learned that when I was in high school type of thing. So yeah, definitely, definitely. So
I just put the link to the community hub registration in the chat. So if anyone wants to, I know like we really did have to buzz through all this stuff. But I think if anyone wants to just keep chatting, we really don't envision that to be like a webinar. We envision it to be like a bring your lunch and let's just genuinely talk. Like we all talk authentically in our own spaces
yeah.
about these topics. And then I just put that in the chat. And then I do know I would love for you all to join join our network beyond just our meetings and beyond the conversation. I run all of our social media accounts, and it's something that we feel really passionately about in terms of storytelling for young people with disabilities as well as professionals. So whether you have a young person that you want to maybe recommend or send to us, I know that that was the second question, was how do you get your young person involved in our hub? Send them our way. I know my email is in there, erinblack@transitiondiscoveries.org. I would love to connect with them as another young person with a disability, and we will get them hooked up and connected to all of the things. So
Yeah, and as we grow, as a new nonprofit, we're searching funding, especially from corporations that believe in our pillars, basically, that we're going to be recruiting young adults to be in leadership roles and internships at Transition Discoveries, and also to be engaged in putting together additional educational materials on the pillars. So if you're interested in that, please reach out to any of us. Right now we're in that foundation stage, but our doors are wide open, and I can't thank you enough for coming today and giving us this opportunity.
And I know if it's all right, we can stay on for a minute. It looks like we have some other more specific questions. I can stay on for a minute. I know we'd be happy to answer those. And I
Okay.
did just put my email in the chat again, but I do know all of this will be sent out to all of you. We have our social media links. I know we have all of our emails and more, every link that we showed today. But I know Josie, I'm sure you guys have some other things to share, so we'll pass it back over to you.
Well, I mean, not much at all. Thank you all for such a wonderful webinar. And if you have additional questions, as you all know, you will get the recording of this webinar and the PowerPoint. It's also on our website, but I would highly recommend reaching out to Erin or Joan or any of these wonderful individuals if you have further questions. So thank you all so much for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. So thanks everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.